dark future, there is only war. Well, it's not that bad, really. Civilization is mainly devastated by a worldwide apocalypse, with the remnants of humanity clinging to existence however they can, via high technology and xenophobia, or embracing the madness, fortifying with whatever resources and defenses they have left, and adapting to it in time-honored tradition, or even joining forces with a much more diverse and frightening multiverse than anyone ever expected to exist. Welcome to Rift's Earth, the world setting for Palladium Books' unique, innovative and top-rated role-playing game based on their groundbreaking Megaversal game system, which has been around for a lot longer than you might think it has. As this video is about a specific alien species, I'll summarize what Rifts is all about. In the Rift's Earth setting, at a time in our future where climate change has created great political conflict and also great technological advancements, a combination of little understood mystical forces combined with an act of technological mass murder managed to trigger a supernatural event of mind-boggling scope, actually tearing open random super portals across the fabric of space and time, leading to the emergence of magic, monsters, and powerful technologies. The game allows players to create characters from various classes and races, each with unique abilities and powers. Players can play as humans, mutants, cyborgs, and supernatural beings like vampires and dragons. The setting is a post-apocalyptic world where different factions struggle for power and resources. Players can choose to align themselves with various groups, such as the Coalition States, a powerful human-centric military force, the Federation of Magic, a group of magic users who embrace new residents of Earth from across the multiverse, the Cyber Knights, an order of technologically enhanced psychic warriors who fought back human extinction in the time of chaos between the Rift's cataclysm, which occurred around a century or so ago in the time of the setting, to name just a few. Player characters can also be mercenaries, adventurers, or members of secret organizations. The game is known for its detailed world building and emphasis on player choice and freedom. In the core game book, an example alien species that are not interested in coexisting with humanity and all the other dimensional beings, or DBs, who now dwell there, are the insectoid Xiticix, and today we're going to learn all about them. The Xiticix arrived on Earth through an uncontrolled, magical, interdimensional portal and quickly established their presence in the American Southwest. They built vast underground hives from which they launch raids on human settlements and other rival factions. The Xiticix are highly intelligent and capable of advanced technology, but they primarily rely on natural abilities and swarm tactics in combat. Their intelligence is alien and mainly incomprehensible to other species, but their instinctual behavior is much more predictable and highly effective. The Xiticix are divided into castes, each with specific roles and abilities. The worker caste is responsible for building and maintaining the hive, while the warrior caste is responsible for defending it and launching attacks. The queen caste is the hive's leader and is responsible for reproduction and directing the hive's activities. The Xiticix constitute a significant threat to the Rift's Earth setting and are considered one of the most dangerous alien species on the planet. They are highly territorial and view other species as potential threats to their survival. As a result, they are often the target of military operations and mercenary groups seeking to eliminate the hives and contain the threat they pose. The Xiticix information was greatly expanded with the publication of Xiticix Invasion in 1999, an information-packed book in Palladium's signature softcover style, including details on how their hive networks are established, various subclasses and their caste system, how they interact with each other, and ultimately their biological imperative to take over Rift's Earth, as well as the usual expansions on details about factions and forces involved in the fight to exterminate them. Aside from the information in the core rulebook and World Book number 23, there are several issues of The Rifter, a periodical published by Palladium Books that feature articles about the Xiticix invasion. One of the most significant issues is Rifter number 3, which includes an article titled The Xiticix that provides an in-depth look at their biology, society, and behavior of the Xiticix. Most recently, we had Rifter issue 59, from which I've also included some info. You know me, I like to be as thorough in my research as possible, within reason. There's a massive amount of information in these documents, hence I have to restrict this video to being just about the aliens and not covering all the details about the different factions fighting against them and even another dimension, which is included in the World Book. Sorry about that. Okay, bibliography aside, let's get settled back. Put your feet up, grab a tasty beverage, and engage your imagination. It's time to get deeply nerdy. Xiticix are large, Insectoid humanoids. As humanoids, they have a typically upright biped stance, lower limbs adapted primarily to locomotion and upper limbs mainly for manipulation of the environment. However, many members of the Xiticix species look less human than others, and even those who walk and stand on two legs also climb on walls like bugs, run on all sixes, and behave more like insects than humans. The Xiticix have much more in common with ants, their evolutionary offshoot the wasps and bees, and their related hive builders the termites and so on, rather than most sentient life forms who are of a comparable size and configuration as humans. As insectoids, they have a different arrangement of internal organs, and their functions are not performed by the same sort of structures as have developed in Earth life forms. But some things are similar to what you might expect. For instance, they do have a large brain located in their head. They have something similar to a heart and lung structures in the thorax and so on. Xiticix have insectoid sight with multiple compound eyes. They have keen olfactory sensors that use their antennae, not their respiratory system and mucus-covered sensory receptors inside the nose and coating the tongue like humans do. While their sight is focused directly in front of them, they have 360 vision, an indication of their predatory nature. Their sight is not as laser-focused as a human's is, with a distinct focal point. It's more like they have a clearer overall peripheral sense of vision and are keenly aware of any kind of movement. As insectoids, they have a segmented body, jointed limbs, an exoskeleton, and 3 body segments. But they also have a structure similar to a human spine, 6 limbs, and a set of wings, which are fully functional in many members of the species. In fact, one member of the species has got 8 limbs. At the apex of their social biological society is the queen, who almost never leaves the confines of her chamber in the hive complex, so her limbs may be somewhat atrophied or she may be bloated and highly specialized for producing vast numbers of offspring. The queen usually remains in the highly protected large chamber, tended by nannies and elite warriors and subtypes of workers of the alien bugs who feed, clean, and tend to her in the hive, but also tend to and never leave the confines of the chamber either. Xiticix are a species with keen intelligence, but a totally alien mindset to humans. They're driven primarily through instinctual responses, particularly to chemical triggers released by higher-ranking members of the Xiticix hive. The queen has by far the most complex and potent pheromones out of all the Xiticix and psychic powers. She is also the only one, for example, who can trigger the workers and nannies to take specially coated and hibernated eggs out of long-term storage to produce more workers, warriors, and in some cases, new queens. Xiticix are an invasive species. They regard most other life forms, particularly those who display signs of intelligence, as a threat to be eliminated. However, they rarely hunt and kill most animals. They don't need to exterminate them directly. They eventually wipe out all competition and threats through global domination and then terraform the landscape and eventually the climate and atmosphere to suit their form of life, and allow all the native species to go extinct as they fail to adapt and survive. This is ironically close to what humans were doing to the planet just prior to the cataclysm centuries ago. And due to the chaos of that time and remote wilderness location the Xiticix first arrived at, nobody knew how widespread and numerous and highly dangerous these insectoids would become in only a matter of a few decades. Left unchecked, the Xiticix will spread across the United States and Canada and eventually the world. The hive complex is massive, largely underground, and built like a gigantic mushroom up above. Internally, it is a sprawling city-like complex with its own numerous portal-like entrances and exits, ramps and bridges connecting the many towers from the outside, and a tunnel network in the towers and underground. Inside, it's an infrastructure of chambers, passageways, ramps, tunnels, and holes that lead to the various workstations, living areas, and chambers of the Xiticix inhabitants. The lower a visitor goes, the more likely he is to encounter the Xiticix denizens who rarely leave the internal confines of the hive. Hives are constructed by the Xiticix from their naturally generated organic resins and available resources. They are massive structures towering 8 stories high, but these mushroom-shaped towers are merely the tip of the iceberg. Your average post-apocalyptic human is unaware of the vast underground network forming a complex labyrinth beneath their feet. The area surrounding the hive towers is considered to be Xiticix territory, or hive territory, and may actually contain a number of hives spreading out gradually as control is established and new queens are released to push the Xiticix further and further out into the wilderness and ruins of the world. Despite their expansionist, aggressive nature, it's quite possible to pass through hive territory in relative safety, as long as careful protocols are strictly followed in order to never trigger the insectoid's instinctual behavior. Keeping on the move is key, and any pause that could be seen as a challenge by squads of Xiticix warriors, and they do not hesitate. They rush to attack suddenly without warning. Once battle is begun, there is no room for explanations, negotiations, or apologies. It is a battle to the death. Using the Xiticix's own pheromones is an ideal method of masking one's presence, but while their olfactory sense is quite dominant, if you're up in their face, murdering their eggs or too close to their queen, they will get triggered no matter what you smell like. You better be wearing some sort of dead Xiticix exoskeleton power armor or something to fool their eyes as well. Light is present inside the hives, but the terrain can be difficult as it is covered in an alien fungus, a symbiotic organism which has been living with and invading new worlds via the Xiticix for who knows how many millions of years. The fungus looks a bit like fronds of moss and glows with a soft, eerie green light that is dim to human eyes, about equal to a single 40-watt bulb in a large room. This fungus is farmed by the Xiticix, but also lives within them and has some connection to the spectacular mystic, psychic energies of the visible ley lines and nexus line points where the ley lines meet all over the supercharged planet Earth, a subject I will cover in greater depth in an upcoming video. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to know more about Palladium's radically different mythology, paganist-based concept of magical and psychic forces in their role-playing system, as it's described from in-character, in-world point of view. Xiticix locate their hives right on these lines and nexus points as they can, and infuse this power into their offspring and base a lot of their unique organic technology on it, as well as their remarkable use of their own organic resins and polymers. They can literally spit up goop and turn it into the equivalent of an electromagnetic railgun, a telekinetic force projector, or a non-lethal resin launcher, plus things like acid grenades, all manner of martial weapons and so on. When you think about it, one of the most advanced constructed materials on planet Earth, even right now, is simple spiderweb. As well as feeding organic material into it in the form of dead animals, plants, and even their own dead to the fungus, they can eat animals and plants native to Earth when away from the hive. So Xiticix can patrol away from the hive complex quite far and for a long time without any problems. They don't typically drink water directly, but get enough from their food thanks to a pretty efficient respiratory system and their exoskeleton preserving their internal liquids. To give you some idea of how large a colony can get, they typically don't splinter off into multiple sister hives unless the central hive complex population goes over 500 million Xiticix. But most of these individuals are of the caste subspecies you don't normally see, the infants, the workers, the nannies and such, plus the queens. Most folks only encounter warriors and hunters. Really, it's the need to feed the fungus, their primary food source, which dictates the spread of the hive chambers and the number of organisms that the amount of fungus can support. Getting into a hive requires climbing up 3 stories up the side of the towers where you find the entrances, connected fairly often by narrow walkways arching gently across the span between the towers. There's no safety rails and often uneven, slippery and spiky, and you have a very good chance of walking right into an emerging Xiticix warrior at random if you duck into one of the round projecting entrances with a lip over the top to keep the rain running inside too much. The entrances are never lower than 3 stories and can be 5 stories or higher. Once inside, travel is up a near or total vertical passage or shaft and then straight down into the lower chambers. This is defensive and also involves air and moisture circulation inside the hive that moderates the temperature extremely well. All the Xiticix can become agitated and heat the place up, or they can calm and flutter their wings and let natural airflow keep them the right temperature and supplied with oxygen to breathe. However, there is always the threat of invading native earth fungus spores, but the Xiticix seem to take care to exterminate junk fungus weeds, so to speak, where they find it. If triggered, anyone infiltrating a hive runs the serious risk of getting sealed inside a tower or tunnels and getting besieged from warriors coming from the top, bottom and sides in what is called a clamp and destroy strategy. Each tower can have something like 200 warriors just camping out in the dome-shaped mushroom chambers at the top of the most towers, so it gets really bad really fast. Each Xiticix warrior weighs around 500 pounds or 227 kilograms and is strong enough to rip the door off a car. They can also take to the air with the full weight of an armored rifle-toting adult human male with no great difficulty, with wings that don't look that big but move so fast they create a humming drone and sometimes a more aggressive whining sound. Xiticix use brief wing buzzing sounds as part of their communication. Xiticix warriors will simply pile on top of a target, and aside from stabbing, slashing, and biting, their sheer weight is often enough to just crush an opponent to death. Simple, but very effective. 4 warriors weigh a ton. 10 warriors can stop most cars from moving very far, with their wheels blowing out, bogging the vehicle down in the ground, and so on. Various chambers types are dedicated to the Elder Queen, the egg and nursery chambers, living quarters, storage of foods, organic materials, and even pools for grooming and some drinking, and of course around 150 miles of passages extending far underground in all directions. Quoting directly from World Book 23, The Xiticix Invasion, we learn all the details of their life cycle after being birthed by the queen as a baseball-sized egg. After 3 months, the baby nit crawls from its egg. At the end of the first year after hatching, the nits grow larger to about the size of a German shepherd and develop a light leathery exoskeleton. They also begin to exhibit traits that represent their adult body and abilities, particularly in the development of the head and face. At this stage, they are known as grubs. It will be another 8 months before the outline of wings or other features begin to form under the skin and other changes begin to occur. For one, the grub doubles in size, and for another, it turns a dark color and the skin becomes more leathery. At the end of the second year, the grub spins a cocoon where it undergoes an amazing transformation. It's these cocoons you quite often see the workers carrying around in large crab-like manipulators at the end of a pair of their arms. 30 days after entering into the pupa cocoon state, a fully formed adult chews its way out of the chrysalis, eating it in its entirety as its first meal. Immediately after dining, the Xiticix is ready to begin performing duties around the hive and now consists mostly of fungus and found organic material. Although this 2-year-old looks very much like an adult, its color is significantly paler and lighter, and the exoskeleton is not as hard or durable, but it will achieve that durability within a year. This transition period is spent within the hive, performing various duties. Although its natural instincts provide it with most of what the insectoid needs to know, working with adults helps the creature to fit smoothly into Xiticix society, understand its place, and become self-sufficient and motivated. The young adult contributes to the work around the hive, doing roughly half the work of a fully developed adult. Once this year-long training and development period ends, the 3-year-old is as strong and capable as any adult and takes on all the normal responsibilities and tasks required of its species. For example, the young diggers might do repairs and clean up until strong enough to actually help construct anything or dig entire tunnels on their own. Likewise, young warriors will protect the less vital areas of the hive until they are strong enough and tough enough to guard important areas, outer perimeters, or go on patrols or engage in full life and death combat. Young warriors and hunters rarely leave the hive or participate in hunts or patrols until they are completely mature. It isn't until the end of the Xiticix 3rd year that it is normally considered that adult state. The entire process takes roughly 39 to 40 months from egg to mature adult, and this time period is greatly shortened overall thanks to the highly nutritious fungus sludge they eat and the presence of psychic energies. A warrior can live to be 80 years old, but its service to the hive as a fighter and defender means most do not live beyond the age of 25. Meanwhile, workers and other Xiticix will rarely go outside the world, into the world, and avoid combat, and have an average lifespan of 65 years of hard labor that take their toll, with a handful living to be 80. The longest lived of the Xiticix is the Elder Queen. This mistress of the hive is the ultimate ruler and lives for up to 300 years. The young queens, if lucky, can also live into their hundreds. However, while there are many young queens, there can only be one elder queen, and it is the elder queen that all the others are completely loyal to, including the young queens. When one of the lesser queens can no longer be a useful part of society, i.e. cannot give birth, and she has lost her value to the hive, she is quickly and mercifully slain, and her carcass is eaten and turned into sludge fed to the fungus. The bulk of worker caste Xiticix are generally labor drones who obey the instructions of other specialist Xiticix workers, such as the diggers, who are the architects of the hive structure and provide the workers with additional resin compounds that are mixed with clay to form a super strong concrete sort of polymer material, a bit porous in some places and as smooth as glass in others. The nursery specialists are called nannies or nurses, and there are specialist warriors such as the hunter, a light and fast scout type who are fast and cunning, and the much larger 6-armed super warriors who direct forces of Xiticix warriors and are devastating in combat, also able to eject acid spit. But aside from some specific details on the territory and lots of details on the groups and factions of the Rift Earth who are fighting against the insectoid invaders, that's about as much as you need to know about their biology outside of a bunch of role-playing game statistics. As for their weaponry, they have an array of heavy, very tough resin hand-to-hand weapons, as well as advanced organic telekinetic force projector weapons that function very much like electromagnetic railguns. Bottom line, they can go toe-to-toe with highly advanced power armor units, psychic warriors and packs of mutant dog boy soldiers, huge robotic war machines, and a highly advanced air force operated out of the fortified megastructure called Chi-Town, located on the site of old Chicago. But perhaps we will talk more about those things in future videos. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell and share this video, as the more interest it gets, the more information from the Rifts RPG I will cover for you. Now, let's turn our attention to some other alien beings found in Xiticix Hive territory. From the Rifter issue 59, printed in July 2012, we learn more about the other creatures that are most likely also from the Xiticix homeworld or from other worlds the species has dominated that have adapted to predate on this insectoids. Some think these may even be biological weapons created by other civilizations in order to curb the rampant spread of the invaders across the multiverse. But whatever their origin, these species can now be found in many areas dominated by the Xiticix on Rift's Earth. Vesparix are parasitic predators of the Xiticix and protozits. Protozits are basically primitive forms of Xiticix that don't have the same complex sociological structure of the queen hive network. They're more like cave Xiticix. The Vesparix are glossy black and around the same size as a Xiticix warrior, but leaner and much faster, more like the hunters. They're solitary, only coming together to mate, at which point they will then sneak into a Xiticix hive and lay their eggs on the backs of Xiticix larvae, which will not reach maturity. They will simply continue to grow in size until the larvae basically go berserk and rampage around because they've got offspring inside eating their internal organs. And this damages the precious nursery chambers and likely kills many viable offspring of the hive queen. So they then eject the big mutant larvae and throw it outside, where the Vesparic emerges from the larvae and consumes some more of it. But the larvae at that stage is usually around 15 feet tall, 25 feet long, and weighs up to 3 tons. So newly emerged Vesparics are fully formed adults ready to continue their life cycle. It seems very likely that the Vesparics were also native to the Xiticix homeworld. There's also the possibility that they were genetically engineered by some other species in order to do what they do, and some attempt to fight the Xiticix on their own terms as nature, such as it is, intended. But that's just speculative. Vesparics are likely to ignore other creatures unless their hunting instincts are triggered by individuals who are masking their presence from the Xiticix by covering themselves with pheromones. Normally a very clever tactic, but to slip past Xiticix territory, but a lethal mistake when it comes to the wasp men, as some folks call them. Vesparics have flight speeds recorded at 105 miles per hour, natural bioregeneration, enhanced olfactory abilities thanks to their sensitive antennae, and the ability to create custom pheromones and other similar resin-secreting abilities that allow them to enhance their already extremely durable exoskeleton chitin, form weapons and tools, and so on. Vesparics are, they have impressive vision with a 340-degree field of vision, including seeing into the infrared and ultraviolet spectrum, and night vision out to 4,000 feet, similar to the Xiticix. They also have a paranormal ability to blend into shadows, typically only revealing themselves if exposed by the super alarm pheromones released by a Xiticix disturbed queen. Mentally, they operate mostly on instinct and alien insectoid logic, but they have a reputation for being cold, calculating lone wolves with a penchant for letting their prey die an agonizing death. They're damn near impossible to provoke, unlike the Xiticix, and manage to keep a clear head even in the most chaotic of situations. As mentioned, a Vesparic stands about 8 feet tall and weighs around 480 pounds, with a potential lifespan of over 65 years to a maximum of around 80 years. There are well over 10,000 or more Xiticix per every one Vesparix. The creatures feed on Xiticix and the weird fungus that coats the interior of Xiticix colonies. They are capable of producing some form of organic resin-based telekinetic ranged weapons that the Xiticix are similar designs but only sleeker and often with a much better range and precision. Sniper weapons, essentially. Another predator that eats the Xiticix is a form of heavily armored 20-foot long, 10-foot high, 8-legged, 5-ton reptile of some kind with a green, red, and black hide covered in thick scales and horns. They're naturally capable of releasing mimic pheromone signals that attract the Xiticix, providing a steady meal of victims to the Xiticix, as some people call them. The eaters will normally climb the side of a Xiticix tower, stack, and eat the warriors as they emerge. Aside from the size of the things, it's very similar to what lizard insectoids do on Earth. Warm-blooded, despite their lizard-like nature, Xiticix eaters can operate at peak efficiency for up to 24 hours without needing rest, and they are resistant to mystical forces for some reason. They don't have or really need a lot of special abilities, but they're known to have an acute sense of smell that can pick up and track scents from up to 2 miles away. Plus, as attested by some scouts who saw them react to a target lock when they had no business knowing they were in danger, they seem to have some sort of primitive precognitive sense. So even the Xiticix are capable of psychic manifestation, and they're most likely also from the Xiticix homeworld, possibly. Thankfully, these monstrous reptilians are not found more than 100 miles from Xiticix hive territories because they rely on the Xiticix as their sole source of food. Special shout out to Wayne Brooks Jr., primary artist and writer of the Xiticix Invaders. It's mostly his artwork and creative work that I've included and referenced in this video, and he is hands down one of my favourite Palladium artists over the years. I wish him the very best in his life and career. And that is it for this exploration of a fascinating and well conceptualized alien species from a very cool world setting. My name is AJ Pickett, your guide to aliens, monsters, and mythological beasties. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.